Well, as Dave said, I'm Kristi Tacony Humes. I'm the CEO of Tacony Corporation. Third generation family business headquartered in St. Louis, Missouri. We specialize in the distribution, manufacturing, and marketing of products in the sewing, home floor care, and commercial floor care industries. Exciting stuff. But the good news is people still love to sew, and thank goodness they do, and they spend a lot of money on it. And an outcome of COVID has been that our consumers are addicted to sewing and to cleaning. So when Dave asked me to speak today, I hesitated. I hesitated some more, and in fact, I am still hesitating. But this was for all the pro TED Talkers out there. What the heck was I going to add? What value was I going to bring to this room? And so I did toy with the idea of writing a book once. It was going to capture all the stories of this interesting career journey I've been on. But it was going to involve a pen name, a trench coat, sunglasses, dark hair dye, and I'd have to move to an unmarked location in the Caribbean for the rest of my life once the book was published. Those stories are not appropriate for this stage. But here I am, in person, regular hair dye, and I'm going to give it a shot. So if it ain't broke yet, fix it. So I started in our family business in 1994. And I became CEO in 2016. I followed two amazing gentlemen, both unique in their very own ways. Different leaders, but extremely successful. Try walking in those shoes. 75 years, profit, successful, an amazing, great family culture. I have the honor to carry that on. And it is my true pleasure to be able to do that. I've learned a lot, some of what to do and some of what not to do. The nice thing is when I did take over, I wasn't charged with having to fix anything. But I did have the opportunity to make it better and to not screw it up. Early in my career, upon reflecting back, I had a natural curiosity, one that I asked a lot of questions. I also did that as a young kid, too. My parents probably were pretty annoyed. But that has really shaped my leadership style. I have taken that to our company, and that has really developed who we are, an ever-evolving, expanding, and changing organization. Hopefully embracing it, or at least being open to change. I've put together today a few tips that will hopefully help you in whatever position you're in that have helped me along the way. So tip number one, enter the business with your eyes wide open. So if I had only known then what I know today, the job description might have read something like, you have an opportunity to be a leader, but it might take you decades. You will work closely with a bunch of your coworkers, but they will never see you as a peer. You will spend an inordinate amount of time with your boss. You will earn promotions, and you will take on additional responsibility based on merit, but it will never be perceived that way. You'll get regular reviews from your mother, your siblings, your employees. Oh, and maybe this website out there that lets anyone get on there and tell lies about you to intentionally hurt your character. And you're going to be expected to make some change. Oh, but by the way, you've got to keep everything exactly the same. Sounds like a great job. Where do I sign up? But it is just like any job, right? Before you go into it, you want to make sure that you know what you're getting into, and you have the ability to drive its success and its long-term future. Tip number 2, identify your individual strengths that will bolster the enterprise. So now we know that we didn't get the real job description, and our experience when we get into a job isn't maybe necessarily what we think it's going to be, but we have to identify what those strengths are. How about that secret sauce that we're going to give to the organization? You know, when I first started, I really tried to emulate what my predecessor was doing. Why wouldn't I? He was so well admired, and he was so successful, I wanted to do it just like him. But then I realized after a while, I had to bring my own flavor to the organization. So, my secret sauce, it was challenging the status quo. I needed to ask the questions within the organization of why, and create some change. It wasn't as necessarily important about where we've been, although we needed to take that into consideration and use that so we didn't recreate the wheel. But it was really more important about where we were going. What did we do really well, and how do we continue along that and capitalize on that? I also feel like that it's important that we enable our teams to do that too. What are their strengths? What is their secret sauce that they can contribute to our companies? Tip number 3, ask the questions only you can. So there's this certain security that you have, especially when your name is on the building, but also when we're in positions such as these. That gives us the confidence to be able to ask certain questions within the organization. It's our obligation to really dig in and find out what's truly going on in the organization. So I'll give you an example. I had a marketing degree, and one of my first jobs was picking and packing in the warehouse. So I was being trained by the manifest operator, and curiosity got the best of me because we were shipping a lot of our packages through this one small carrier, not a name that you would recognize. And so I asked her, why are we using this carrier? She said, well, I want to give all the business to this truck driver. When he shows up, it's great. He is so good looking. So, you mean to tell me there's no process? There isn't a contract? There isn't necessarily because it's the best rates. We were making this decision based on good looks. I think what's important there is, as leaders, we have to make sure that the processes are in place. 1, just to have discipline, but also 2, that we have best practices, or at least some practice for that matter. We also need to be encouraging our teams to ask the same questions, facilitating an environment and a culture where people feel comfortable to do that. That creates a better environment, that creates ownership, and that creates an ability to find a better way. Oh, and maybe fix some things that aren't broken yet. Okay. Build relationships with appreciation for your team members. I love our Tacony team. It's why I get up every single day, and it gives me the energy to do what I do. I mean, for goodness sakes, they could work anywhere, and they chose our business adventure. That's super cool. And what I hope is that they feel satisfied and proud of their careers at our organization. The contributions that they've made have driven our success. And I can't tell you, I'm also how proud I am of the livelihoods that we've been able to prepare for thousands of families. It's a really cool thing. We are a true Tacony family. But no matter how much you appreciate people within your organization, you don't necessarily get the candor and the openness and the transparency that you're really truly searching for. When I was growing up in the business, young adult, I was trying to build those relationships, and I was spending time with many of our employees, sometimes socially, informal and formally. And I was starting to learn kind of what was going on behind the scenes, what was really going on. Remember that book I talked about at the beginning? That's where those stories are held. But I soon learned that many of the things that I was witnessing and seeing really needed to stay behind the curtain. It was often creating a bias. And I was having lunch with the CEO and the president at the time, almost every day. And I was trying to figure out the balance between personal relationships and work relationships. So I eventually had to back off that. I also learned to appreciate certain kinds of team members. We had an employee who obviously knew I was the boss's daughter, and I was her boss. But the nice thing that I appreciated was she was able to give me the good news and the not so good news that I wanted to hear. And she never sugarcoated it. Didn't matter who I was. Those are the types of people that you want in your organizations. The ones that actually look out for your business more than they're looking out for their own career. They're looking at the open doors and paving their own path in the organization. They're the advocates. They're the loyal ones. They're fixing things before they're broken. They're the keepers. Tip number 5, challenge the business to change while respecting the culture. So have you heard that saying, what got you here won't get you there? So how do you make really tough decisions, but also respect the heritage and the traditions that your company's based on and the things that your predecessor has put into place? I say you do it with a strong degree of difficulty and balance. So, for years, I've heard from both employees and our customers that we long for the old days of Tacony Corporation. It was such a wonderful place to do business with or work for. And you know what? It is, and it was. And I totally agree with them. But it was the decisions that were made back then were for those times in that business. It's critically important that when you're looking to change and when you're looking to make decisions for the future and what's going on in the business today, you have to have the courage and the ability to make those tough calls. Tacony didn't change. Employees stayed for decades. They worked with our customers that also stayed for decades. It was a really comfortable, nice, safe, non-disruptive environment. Who wouldn't want it to be that way? And some employees have left along the way, and it's taken me a really long time to say, that's okay. It takes balance, and you stay true to your values and your purpose. That enables you to look at what those really tough decisions are for the future and gives you the confidence to say that we're doing the right thing for the long-term health of our organization, but also for our culture and for our people. Tip number 6, be yourself. Pretty self-explanatory, right? You gotta have the confidence and the trust in your own decision-making and do what you want to do. You get a lot of input as a leader, solicited and unsolicited. And there's a lot of emotion in business. I can tell you that, especially from a family business, for sure. But it's up to us to take that input, take that data, and run the businesses the way we want to, not the way others expect or want us to. You know, as leaders, and when you look at your predecessors, everybody's got a different style. And that's the way it should be. But when I look at my 2 predecessors, we were different, but there were 2 things that we had in common: being authentic and being fair. And, you know, I think that one thing that people have said about me is that I'm emotional and passionate. And I'm okay with that. I think as you become a CEO or a leader, you quickly learn that we're just human, just like everybody else. And oftentimes our greatest strengths are our greatest weaknesses. And as long as we channel those in a positive way It really shows our self-awareness, vulnerability, and the ability to become a strong, if imperfect, leader. You know, we have customers, small independent retailers all around the country, and they're willing to give you their input too, unsolicited. But we've had to make some pretty interesting decisions, tough ones, on their behalf as well. They each are assigned to a certain service level, and those service levels are based on the amount of business they do with us. At least that's how it's supposed to work. So over time, our salespeople have built very stronger relationships with them and incentivized them in different ways, often muddying the waters on what those service levels really are, right? It wasn't broken, but it definitely needed some fixing. And so we made the healthy decision to reset and put everybody back on the same level. It was fair to our customers, and it was fair to Tacony Corporation. Bottom line, it was the right decision to make. It was disruptive. It was hard. But I'd do it again. Be yourself. Tip number 7, always answer the questions that you would ask. So I've talked a lot about how I've asked questions and the whys, but you also have to be open to receiving questions too and be under the microscope. I had this leader. He was hell-bent on having a video studio at our company, and he was fighting that tooth and nail. I'll just tell you, I might have been a little bit against it. It was costly. Video is not a core competency of our business, and I wanted nothing to do with it. But I tell you what, I give him credit. He kept asking the questions of me. He wanted to get to the bottom of why I was making the decision. He tried to figure out how we could come to common ground, where his vision and my vision and both of our goals was about success and growth. And over time, he eventually made the case. Dare I say, I was probably kicking and screaming on that. And it actually ended up being an ingenious decision because the last couple of years of being virtual during the pandemic, right? Not my best moment as a leader, but definitely a learning moment. And we all learn from the whys. I've also been on the other side, where you need to ask the whys of your superior. And I'm not going to go into the whole story here. You're going to have to read that one in the book as well. But when both parties aren't involved and with an open mind and going into it with good faith, it can backfire. And I'll just tell you, I did that with a former Tacony leader, and all I remember that day was, why, back at my face. So proceed with caution. Tip number 8, reward your own success. In this position, no one is going to tell you that you do a great job. We have an amazing amount of responsibility, and the rewards and the challenges are pretty awesome. But it's a lonely job sometimes. And it's really important that we recognize and reward ourselves, like leading a business successfully through a pandemic, taking time, or at least trying to take time away to recharge the battery, surrounding yourself with people who support you, like your family, or team members that are smart, talented, hardworking people who will give you the good and give you the not so good news, who will ask the whys, who will have a little fun with you to celebrate the victories, and are also willing to fix things before they're broken. It's also important that you celebrate in the smallest ways too. And I oftentimes find myself on the good days, not just the bad days, having a glass of wine. You have to be thankful. I'm thankful to Tugboat for putting together all of these organizations that have a similar mindset and facilitate a way for us to continue to learn and collaborate with each other, and also for gratitude. So sometimes it's not about asking why you're here, but to be grateful for the opportunity. So thank you for listening.